Another big game and another loss for storied programs Michigan and Notre Dame. Georgia survives the Irish comeback bid, but did it have to be that close? UCLA wins with a historic comeback late on Saturday night. We'll give you the details on how they turned it around and what it means for the Bruins program. And Houston star QB goes the redshirt route to save another season. What does this move mean for the sport? All this and more on OFN College Football Weekly with Mitch Light of Athlon Sports for this Thursday, the 26th of September, 2019, on the Ourlads Football Radio Network, brought to you by ourlads.com, providing the best pro and college football depth charts in the industry. And Athlon Sports, the leading publisher of preseason annuals for more than 50 years, sold in 60,000 outlets nationwide. All right, so, Mitch, big game, Notre Dame and Georgia. We finally got to see a game that we knew would have some sort of relevance for the playoffs. Of course, we're going to be getting into some big conference matchups soon as well. We had some this past weekend, but the Georgia-Notre Dame game kind of kicked off the season in a way for some, Goliath type of programs. Not a surprise that Georgia won. Were you surprised it was that close?
A little bit. The question of the week, and I got a lot this week, was, did we learn more about Georgia or Notre Dame? And I think people were fishing for we learned more about Notre Dame. I would argue we learned something about both teams. And, Georgia deserves credit for winning the game. They're still, in my opinion, one of the best 2, 3, 4 teams in the country. But I'd feel better about Georgia's national championship hopes if they to their strengths a little bit more, if they had even more success running the ball, which we thought they would have. There's no shame in beating Notre Dame only by 6 points at home. But again, I'd feel better about them if they were averaging, 6, 7 yards a carry in the first and imposing their will at their best, at their position of strength, offensive line. I thought Kirby, and everyone talked about this all week, I thought Kirby was a little conservative there, on short passes. And then I thought obviously should have gone at that point, put the game away. Notre Dame, they acquitted themselves very well. Their running backs are hurt. They didn't have much of a running game, but they were scrappy. Ian Book, they proved to be a 10 team. You're a top 10 team. So, again, I'm not saying I don't want to penalize a team for only winning by a certain amount of points, but I'd feel better if Georgia had they been a little more impressive.
Look, you said the conservative route regarding Kirby Smart, and I couldn't agree more. I really thought that it reminded me of how they weren't able to put Alabama away the last couple of years, because you have a 10-point lead. You could tell they had Notre Dame's defense on the ropes. They were tired.
Right.
It was 4th and 1. Jake Fromm had just killed himself to try and pick up that first down. He sacrificed his body. 4th and less than a yard. You must put the dagger in Notre Dame. You must reward your quarterback. You must go for the first down. You must score a touchdown. You must go up 17 and end the game right there.
Yeah, you're still either way, 2 touchdowns are going to beat you. And you're the better team. So what happens if you don't get it and they tie you? So you beat them in overtime. Yeah, I just thought it was a weird call. Even having a feel for the game, like you said, Georgia they had much better success kind of imposing their will in the second half. And, it kind of reminded me of some of the LSU teams in recent years, just a conservative game plan, passes, run the ball, trying to win enough where they don't need to play that way.
All right, now let's talk about the crazy game. Now, I must ask you, were you up to watch it live?
No.
Okay.
Sleep
like everyone else on the East Coast.
Stay nights usually because my wife doesn't stay up super late to watch college football. She'll watch some college football with me, but I always fall asleep on the couch. And I just remember turning over thinking, you know what, something weird's going to happen in this game, because every time I fall asleep, something weird happens. And I wake up, I saw the score. The most shocking thing, the score was shocking, and then the fact that the game didn't go into overtime.
Right?
Like I expected to see 4 overtimes, but nope. Crazy.
Yeah, and now I record all the games at night, so I don't stay up. So I'll and I'm single, so there's that. But anyway, you would think that I should stay up, but I tape all these games just in case, or especially the good ones. And after everything that went by, I had to, because I'm sure most people didn't see what happened, but basically, and I had to kind of put it into context so I could see exactly, even just talking about it, how quickly things could turn in a 5-minute span. And if the fans didn't, all they did was hear how UCLA came back. This is how they did it. With 4.5 minutes to go in the third quarter, and it was through the first 30 seconds. It was basically with 4.5 minutes to go into third, and then the first 30 seconds of the fourth. So that's 5 minutes. It went from 49-17 to 49-46. And it all started on 4th and 6 for UCLA. At about the 30 of Washington State. They don't get this 4th and 6, which is just, it's just a 4th and 6. It's a 32-point lead. If they don't get this 4th and 6, game's over. So they get the 4th and 6, another play later, touchdown. Cougars' next drive, the officials, for whatever reason, allowed UCLA to have 5 defenders on the Washington receiver for about 2 seconds, and they allowed the UCLA defender to strip the ball. And usually officials are very careful because you can get injured if you let 5 guys basically get on top of one player. But they let it go. They didn't blow the whistle. UCLA got a break, stripped the ball. What was it, like a play or two later, touchdown, and all of a sudden it's now 49-31. Well, Cougars then, 4th and 4. Here's another interesting point. 4th and 4, next drive from the UCLA 43. Mike Leach, of all coaches, first of all, he was going to go for it, which of course he's going to go for it. It's Mike Leach. And by the way, at that moment, they were 3 for 3. 4th down conversions on the season, which was tied first FBS. What does he do? He shocks everybody. He decides I got to punt the football. So he punts the football. He pins him in. He figures, okay, I did the good job. I'm pinning them in. Boom. Next play, 94-yard touchdown to Felton, 49-38. Next drive, Cougars receiver gets stripped again. And then 2 plays into the 4th, Bruins score again. Successful 2-point conversion, 49-46. That's how you cut the lead to 49-46 from 49-17. You need the turnovers, but I also thought it was interesting that Leach decided to not – I mean, he's always so aggressive, and this time it kind of backfired in a way. I'm sure Mike Leach is probably saying to himself, well, that's what I get for being conservative.
Yeah, I mean, it's you so many things have to go right to blow a lead, to come back, or have to go right. Blow a lead like that, and yeah, it was a perfect confluence of events.
And by the way, next week, since it's the end, it'll be our first show in October. We're going to present our updated Heisman picks and our updated playoff picks and all that. And you know who's already on my board is this kid Felton. Now I know nobody's going to talk about him, but when you put a performance like that together, sort of like what we saw with Chenault last year. When you put a performance like that together in a game, you must be in the talk for the Heisman, even though he won't be.
Yeah, I'm looking at stats right now. 321 yards in the season, half of them in one game, 2 touchdowns. We'll have to see what happens there, but a breakout game there.
I'm just saying, nowadays, you know what it is, Mitch. Nowadays, the Heisman's about quarterback stats. Yeah. I mean, just give him the Johnny Unitas Award.
A guy who did all of his damage about 1 or 2 in the morning Eastern time is going to have a tough time elbowing his way into the Heisman race.
I know he's not going to get in there like Chenault, but I figured, hey, people around the country should know.
Chenault's breakout came at 4 in the afternoon against Nebraska, so I was up for Chenault's breakout last year.
Okay. All right. What do you think about this decision by King and the receiver Corbin? They redshirt. One of the analysts on ESPN thinks it's terrible for the sport. We've talked before about the transfer rule. I love the transfer rule. I think it's awesome for the sport. Instead of these players hiding behind second, third. Look at USC. I mean, you got these quarterbacks because of injury will get a chance to play. But what happens if there weren't injuries? We might never see Fink. So it's nice to see that there's an opportunity to go and play. But this is another way to use it that I've never thought about before. But this is going to happen a lot more often, and I have no problem with it.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I don't think it's going to become an epidemic or happen. It's got to be a perfect, I'll use the same phrase, confluence of events. I mean, that whether or not he just made the decision because they're 1-3, would he be doing this if they're 3-1 or 4-0? I doubt it. My guess is he will not be back. He says he's coming back. I don't think he will be the quarterback in Houston next year. I just think it's the right thing to say
Where's he
right
going to go to
now.
Oklahoma?
No, I think he's going to end up wherever Kendall Briles is. Kendall Briles was, is obviously at Florida State this year.
Wow.
Kendall Briles was the offensive coordinator at Houston last year when he had those big numbers. So that would be my guess. I just think it was someone got to him, Holgerson, whoever, and said, hey, you can redshirt. Why? Just hold off on announcing you're transferring. You can stay on the team. You can use our facilities. You can do all that stuff. Whereas if you announce your transfer, you're kind of alienating the team and all that stuff. So that's just my guess, my read on the situation. It's kind of unique because he's a senior and, the team got off to a slow start. He's playing for his third head coach in 4 years there. So it's definitely interesting, though.
No, I like it. Briles and King, that's a great package. Hey, as a Rutgers fan, I'd love it. I know it ain't going to happen. We'll get into Rutgers a little bit later on, but that makes a lot of sense. I mean, do you have any idea right now, Briles' connections and whether or not, or is it too early for you to guess where he could go?
Well, I mean, I think Briles will probably be back at Florida State, assuming that Willie Taggart.
Okay, you're talking about just him as a coordinator, not a head coach.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, just go play for him again.
Okay.
So Florida State would make sense. Neither, Florida State's quarterback situation, they don't have a lot of depth there, and I think he would obviously slide right in.
By the way, what a crazy ending in that Houston-Tulane game. First, it looked like they were going to take a knee and go to overtime. They do the fake out there.
Which I think should be illegal.
Okay, why is that?
Big safety reasons, and I don't mean to be an old get-off-my-lawn type guy. I've seen how many football games you see where teams are going to take a knee and someone busts through and hits someone, and everyone's like, "You're taking." I think it's deception. I don't know how you would legislate it, but I think it's sort of like the intentional walk in baseball. You can give the play up where you can just tell the officials we're taking a knee.
Great window.
I know it's not going to happen, but that's the first thing I thought about there. Is the next time that happens, someone takes a knee. If I'm a defensive end, I'm busting through. I'm drilling someone. Hey, I saw the Tulane game. I don't know where the ball
is.
Next
time it happens, don't complain.
Yeah.
Big win, though, for Tulane. Big win.
Yeah, huge. Slow national stage, got off to a slow start. Come back from 28-7. It was almost my school. I almost went to Tulane. I got a lot of family in New Orleans.
Well, we're big Fritz fans. We talked about him highly on this program, and maybe this is the year for Tulane. So it could also be the year for SMU, and we'll talk about them a little bit later on. Eastern Michigan, Chris Creighton finds a way to win. Usually he loses these games. How do you win a game on a blocked punt with 10 seconds to go? So I guess the closest thing we could think about was the Michigan State game a couple years ago.
Yeah, you don't just waltz into the factory in Ypsilanti if you're Central Connecticut State and expect to win. You got to win all three facets of the game against our boy Chris Creighton. You can't just win on offense, defense. Yeah. So as much as we like them, that would have been a horrific loss. So give them credit for winning the game. Crazy ending.
Yeah, they've lost enough heartbreakers. So we'll that's fine. We'll move on because nobody probably – I mean, Eastern Michigan, most of the country have no idea what happened. But three key injuries I want to talk about before we get into the conference updates. Boise State leading tackler Zeke Moa out for the season with a wrist injury. That's a big blow for the program, for the football team. They're off to a nice start. But the Mountain West Conference is up for grabs right now, and Utah State is definitely looking every bit as good as I had hoped that they were going to look when the season began. And there are some other good contenders as well, but big loss for Boise State.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
LSU loses Terrace Mitchell. He's out for maybe a month, but they're pretty deep at wide receiver, so I'm not too worried about that. And Texas loses.
Yes. Person, I saw them in person. They got a bunch of dudes who look just like Terrace Marshall.
And Texas loses Caden Stearns. Now that's big if they can't get him back by the Oklahoma game.
Yeah, we've talked about their use one of the highly recruited guys they brought out. I think it's a true sophomore this year, but they don't have enough bodies back there to not have that one hurt a little bit.
All right, let's go into the SEC first. Another disappointing game for Texas A&M. The post-game press conference soundbite we got was talking about Nix. okay, it's nice that the kid's a freshman and they're winning, but Nix didn't win this game. It's Auburn's defense, and it's also Texas A&M's just inability to do anything on offense. It's been a bad start to the season for Texas A&M offensively in big games, but Auburn's defense has been fantastic this season.
Yeah, I mean, it really has. You're right. This was the story was Auburn's defense in this game, and Auburn's, Bo Nix is the story because he's a true freshman quarterback, and his dad played there and all. But he's making enough. He's making a few plays a game to win, but he's not really, having a great season. They need to threaten the big boys in the SEC West. They need him to be better. They need to be better offensively, more efficient offensively. It's a great start. You can argue they have as good of a resume as any team in the country, winning at Texas A&M and beating Oregon on a neutral field. But they need to improve offensively if they want to be a real threat in the SEC West.
You know what they're really missing is the next Kerryon Johnson. That's the problem. They
yeah, Whitlow's fine, but he's not. I don't know if he's an all-SEC guy.
All right, two true freshman QBs in Mississippi making a name for themselves. Garrett Schrader had 125 yards rushing in the win over Kentucky. Sawyer Smith got banged up in that game, and we're not even sure.
Yeah.
I got a gut feeling, and by the way, this is one of your picks this week. South Carolina over Kentucky is a 3-point favorite. I got a gut feeling that Smith may not play. But anyway, good performance by Schrader. He's not a passer, but at this point, look, Mississippi State's used to that.
Yeah, but they just need some offense, to move the ball, and we saw his toughness a couple of weeks ago. And then, ran the ball really well, obviously, and a nice win. I mean, they've been, but after losing to Kansas State, that was a nice win for them.
But the story for the true freshman for me is John Rise Plumlee, who nearly had the comeback win against Cal. And I thought that was, after what we've seen so far this season with Corral at quarterback, I don't even know why this would be a question. Why wouldn't you? Now, look, it's Alabama. That would be the only reason why I would be hesitant about putting a true freshman in your first start against Alabama. But this kid's got to play.
Yeah, I saw the highlights. I did not see the game. It was at the same time as the game I was at. And, to me, that's one of the, surprising stories that Matt Corral has not been better this year. I had high hopes for him. I would not start Plumlee at Alabama because it's Alabama.
Yeah.
That's a tall order. You're kind of setting them up not to succeed. You want to put your players in position to succeed. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I'll be at their Vanderbilt goes to Ole Miss in 2 weeks. See what happens in that game. But that would be, if Matt Corral gets beat out, that would be one of the, not a major story, obviously, because Ole Miss is not really relevant now. But it's here in SEC country, that'd be a big surprise to me.
All right. And by the way, Arkansas, another embarrassing loss. Look, it's a nice win for San Jose State. It wasn't an ugly game. At least for San Jose State's part. They won the game, so good for them. But you can't do this if you're Arkansas. Starkle threw 5 picks. At this point, it looks like it's over for Morris.
I think it's still too early. It's only his second year there. I'd be shocked if something happened after this year. I think he'll get at least one more year. But They have definitely I think they've definitely been a disappointment. The problem in the SEC West is, how do you climb out of that? They're so far in the hole that they're not competitive. Against good teams, and you look at the teams he's beaten. It's Portland State. Colorado State, they haven't come close to beating a good team yet.
All right, this week's games, Ole Miss, Alabama, we talked about that. Mississippi State at Auburn, so I think the spread's about 10 or 11 points in that one. But, again, you're a one-dimensional quarterback going up against that Auburn defense. Auburn has been covering every game. I don't think they're going to blow out Mississippi State. I'm not going to put them in as one of my top picks, but you got to take Auburn right now. They're just a better team.
Yeah, I would think so. Like you said, Mississippi State's running the ball well on Hills, averaging over 6 yards per carry. We saw what Schrader did last week. But I think Mississippi State, Auburn playing with a lot of confidence coming home. Their 2 big wins have been, on the road and Tulane at home. That's fine. But I think there'll be a big crowd ready, fired up for their surprisingly 4-0 Auburn Tigers.
And by the way, big game, too, because they're at Florida next week, Auburn. That's the first of 3 straight road games.
Yes,
So
the schedule is very difficult.
yeah, so they really want to make sure that this game doesn't get away. Now, you like Arkansas as one of your picks this week, and I like them as well. It's a 23-point dog. I might even think, and look, we just ripped Arkansas, but I might even put Arkansas in one of my double-digit plays this week because this has been a real tight series. If you take a look at it,
4 of the last 5 games have been decided by exactly 7 points.
exactly 7 points, yes, and they've all been in Arlington. So
yes. Now A&M's won 5 in a row. In Arlington, 7 in a row, I think overall. But you're right. Last year, the way the two teams played, Arkansas had no business keeping it close. It was 24-17.
There you go. I agree. So I like it as well. I think it's going to be a close game, and if it's going to be a close game, and the money line's 12-1, then I say why not put it in my double-digit upset plays? You never know. All right, now let's move on to the Big Ten. Michigan, another disappointing loss for the Michigan fans. Look, I'm a Michigan fan, but I'm a realist. That's why I had Wisconsin as my 5-star pick last week, and they blew out Michigan. I think it's funny. Most of the people who are criticizing Harbaugh about wanting him fired are all kids because they don't know Jim Harbaugh. They haven't been around long enough to probably even see him coach at San Francisco. So I just thought they don't get it. They don't get the fact that where this program was before he got there. And I actually think it's a lot more simpler. You know, Peoples-Jones starts, and you got a quarterback that could throw and a real good look, that you could say that's Harbaugh's fault. That's fine. I think that changes everything because Patterson has been a major disappointment. He's erratic. Now he's turning the ball over every game. So I don't think they're as far away as many people think. I just think, it's not going to be easy. I also believe it's kind of funny how Urban Meyer criticizes Michigan for not being tough in his post-game analysis, and then all you hear all week is how Michigan's not tough. So who made Urban Meyer like the analyst of analysts? Just because he says Michigan's not tough, all of a sudden they're not tough.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's his opinion, and people are going to take it and run with it. So, it's bottom line industry in Michigan in year 4 or year 5, shouldn't be uncompetitive with Wisconsin.
No,
That's my take.
I agree.
So that they've got, especially coming off last year with the defense being so good. I know they lost a lot of players. So I like Harbaugh. We picked Michigan to win the Big Ten East. I'm a Harbaugh guy. But to me, this was a troubling, with a week off to prepare. This was a troubling loss. And I'm with you. He's not getting tired anytime soon. He might leave on his own. That wouldn't shock me. Take an NFL job or something like that. But there's no way he's on the hot seat.
Well, right now the way things are going, who's gonna, he's not going anywhere for a while. So get over that. They got this kid, another quarterback. They got to find a quarterback. He's a true freshman. Maybe next year they'll get him in there, but that's the biggest problem at Michigan. But big win for Wisconsin. I think they're for real. Why not? They got the running back. The quarterback seems like he's okay for Wisconsin standards. The defense has been fantastic.
Yeah, no, they've been one of the most impressive teams in the country. From their resume isn't maybe as good as Auburn's, but they've played better probably than any team in the country. Obviously, I'm not putting up there with Clemson, Alabama,
That's
Georgia.
A good comparison. Who would you take? I would take Wisconsin over Auburn.
Right now, neutral field, I think I would too.
All right, now Rutgers loses to Boston College, and I just wanted to bring this up, being Rutgers guy and all. And fact is, all Rutgers fans now, that's it. Krishesh, it's over. And I think it is kind of over unless he does something dramatic here this season, which probably ain't going to happen. But the question then, and we talked about this last year, who takes over for Rutgers?
Butch Jones.
Butch Jones. Okay, why Butch Jones? Who I was very critical of, by the way, over his career. So that would be funny.
He's making some
on me.
Yeah, he's making some waves that he'd be interested in the job, I think.
In the Rutgers job.
Yes, really? I actually think he would be a good fit there. Butch Jones, his career close. I thought he did a good job at Central Michigan, Cincinnati. I thought he was a good hire at Tennessee. He got caught up, in my opinion. The Tennessee job at that time was he was in over his head with all of the surroundings, all the things that come with being a big-time SEC head coach, and he just got weird with his cliches and the things he said. I think if he goes to Rutgers, which is a Power 5 job, but clearly doesn't have all the distraction, all the other things, go back to just being a football coach. He was a good recruiter. He recruited good players to Tennessee.
He did.
I actually think he'd be a good fit at Rutgers. I just don't think he's cut out to be an SEC or at a school with a lot of scrutiny like that, whether it's a high-end Big 10, Big 12 job.
Does he have Northeast ties?
He's from Michigan, so I mean, he didn't have ties to the SEC, and he recruited the hell out of Tennessee.
Okay. All right. Game tonight. Tomorrow night. Penn State and Maryland. Penn State has beaten Maryland the last 3 years by a combined 142-20. This is a different Maryland team, though, but it's only a 6.5-point spread. Temple's defense stopped Maryland. Why won't Penn State stop Maryland?
Yeah, I mean, that's Penn. I don't remember the total yards in this game. I know it wasn't a lot, but Maryland did also have troubles in the red zone there. To me, this is just a fun game because those two coaches are going to go against each other recruiting, in the D.C. area, Loxley and James Franklin. And, James Franklin's history with Maryland, he was the head coach in waiting who never became head coach. So, he loves beating them, as you kind of said from the scores there. So, I don't know what to think of Penn State. I like this game for Penn State. I think they're going to cover, but they did not play well against Buffalo for a half. They did not play well last week against Pitt. Now Pitt's probably better than we think, or 2 weeks ago. So this is going to be an interesting game. I don't think Maryland's going to win, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was pretty close.
All right, now the big one is Ohio State and Nebraska, and everybody's already kind of getting a history lesson with Ohio State in this spot, which is over the last 4 years, they have lost in a spot when they were either second ranked or third ranked. And what I mean by in this spot is last year they lost to Purdue by 29 when they were 7-0. In 2017, they were ranked third. They lost by 31 to Iowa in Iowa. In 2016, they were ranked second. They lost to Penn State by 3. And in 2015, they were second. They lost to Michigan State by 3. So if you look at the rest of the schedule, the only other 2 games on the road this year are Northwestern and Rutgers. So if Ohio State's going to lose one of these road games this year, this would be it.
Yeah, and a couple other, similarities. Last year, Rondale Moore had that kind of breakout game for Purdue on a national stage. Nebraska's got a similar player, Wendell Robinson, kid from Kentucky, who can run it and catch the ball. Had a big game last week against Illinois. Nebraska's offense, they fumbled 4 times, so that kept the score down. But they had 346 rushing and 328 passing last week. So their offense moved the ball. It's just the 4 fumbles that kept that game close there. So Nebraska to keep this thing pretty close.
And by the way, the last time Ohio State visited Lincoln, it was 56-14. So I'm sure the fans are going to be up for this one. They don't need any more reasons. Okay, by the way, the money line is almost 6-1. Okay, ACC and Pitt. We talked about this last week because this was your double-digit upset special, and Pitt came back. They had the 21-0 lead. Then they looked dead at 31-21. Give them a lot of credit for coming back and winning that football game with that crazy game-winning touchdown pass. We kind of could see it coming with Pitt. We talked about that. The passing game is starting to come around now. Huge win after the tough loss, really the 2 tough losses to Virginia and Penn State, especially the Penn State game.
Yeah, I mean, 21, like you mentioned, just to give up the lead, to come back. They had some huge defensive stops in the fourth quarter, forcing some punts. And, it just seemed like they would go first down, third. They'd have to convert on third and fourth down. The offense was inconsistent, but then the great play, the Pitt special, as they called it, great play to win the game. So, yeah, it's a team that's, lost its opener to Virginia, but they beat a pretty good Ohio team. They lost, they played well at Penn State, and they beat UCF. So they obviously have that loss to Virginia, which is going to hurt in any tiebreaker, but they could be a factor in that Coastal Division.
Florida State over Louisville. This was another one of your top picks last week. Hornibrook replaces Blackman and has a huge second half. Great numbers, like 20 of 25, 255, something like that, a couple scores. So we're already hearing, okay, well, will Blackman play or not? It's not an ACL, it's an MCL, so he could play as early as this week. Question is, who would you play if Blackman was healthy?
Well, Willie Taggart came out and said today Blackman's their quarterback if he's healthy. So
who would you play?
I didn't see enough of the game. I mean, I saw bits and pieces of the second half of that game. I would probably play Blackman because he's younger. Their offense has been inconsistent, but it's also been pretty good at times this year. Not being there, it's difficult to say, but I would probably lean towards Blackman.
All right, well, I would do Hornibrook because to me, it's not always about stats. Look, I agree with everything you said about Blackman, especially the youth, and I think he's done a pretty good job. But when you get to a point, sometimes, especially the fragileness of this Florida State team, you need guys leading your team that know how to win. And if that's the one thing Hornibrook's been able to do over his career, he knows how to win. He's a winning quarterback, and especially the way he looked. Now, if Blackman plays, I would hope if he's struggling, he would take him out, save a game, and not worry about Blackman's fragile state of mind. But, we'll see if we get to that point.
Yeah, no, it's, because they are, for all their troubles, they're a couple plays away from being in much better shape than they are,
And they go to Clemson in a couple weeks.
Yeah, they could be undefeated.
Okay, big win, by the way, for Appalachian State over North Carolina.
Yes.
Big win for the program. And that kid, I love that kid Evans, by the way.
Yeah, North Carolina's, you look at their stat lines, they've played about the same in all 4 games. They've won 2 close ones and they've lost 2 close ones. They've been consistent. They just, they haven't been great.
And now they host Clemson. And I don't know, I still don't like the way Clemson's playing. There's something about the way they're playing. I just don't like it. I just wonder, though, I'm thinking, a team like these big-time teams sometimes are more vulnerable at home, which is weird. But so I don't know if this is the game. I think Clemson's going to lose a game that you're not expecting this year. I don't know if it's going to be this week. I don't think it will be. Maybe it's Wake Forest. But I think there's going to be a game this year that they're going to be a heavy favorite and they're going to lose.
All right, I can't find it. I'm looking for something I tweeted out this week. It was a stat about Clemson. Basically, they have not given up a meaningful touchdown all season. Like the scores of the games when were like nothing. The only one that was close to anything was the Texas A&M game when it was 24-3 and Texas A&M
last minute of the game. Yeah.
Scoring like basically the final play of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So their defense is not giving up a touchdown that counts basically all season long. So I'm fine with the way this Clemson team is playing. I've got no problems with them.
All right. By the way, first matchup since the ACC championship game, which kind of started the dynasty for Clemson. The ACC championship season in 2015. As far as this week, Friday, tomorrow night, that's a key game, Duke and Virginia Tech. I like Duke in this game. I like Duke, especially as a dog. They're 5-1 straight up, 5-0-1 against the spread. Their last 6 is road dogs. That's a pretty good dog team. And I just think Virginia Tech, their offense is being led by a true freshman running back and a true freshman receiver, and it's not like those guys are looking like all-conference performers. Virginia Tech's offense just not doing it. I think Duke, we know how Duke is. Cutcliffe's a good coach. I like Duke in that game.
Yeah, I like Duke too. They're a weird team just because they played 3 games by Alabama and they killed NC A&T and Middle Tennessee. So they haven't close to a comparable where Virginia Tech has, and obviously lost to BC there. So the spread I think opened at 7 and went quickly down to 3.
The Deacons and BC, Wake Forest has started 4-0 and 16-17, but they haven't gotten to 5-0. Another chance to get to 5-0. The road team has won 5 straight in this series. I think it's going to be 6 straight.
Yeah, this one's interesting. I'll go Wake in this. Their offense, between Surratt and Scotty Washington, they got 2 weapons at wide receiver, and obviously Newman's playing very, very well. I don't know if they're a secret anymore because people know about them being 4-0, but they've got a fun offense.
And Hinton made the big 4th down catch to win the game against Utah State, the former quarterback.
Yes.
He might return this week. And speaking of sleepers for the Heisman, Jamie Newman. Nobody's going to. Nobody
deep sleeper.
Well,
yeah.
See, that's the kind of stuff that only we'll talk about. But
yeah.
Okay, Big 12. One of your top picks last week came through again. Big week for you, by the way. Nice week.
I needed it.
Texas over Oklahoma State. That was a crazy close game. But hey, Texas got the win, and it was a good game, though.
Yeah, it was a fun game to watch. Sanders is fun. Obviously, freshman quarterback there. We thought it would be high scoring. Texas, kind of seemed like it was always up 2 scores, and State would cut it to 1 score, and spread was 6. Spread was 5, and they won by 6. Beautiful.
I love it.
Beautiful thing.
By the way, Oklahoma State home against Kansas State. Now, this is one of your picks this week, which kind of surprises me because we both, we like Kansas State.
Yeah, I love what's going on at Kansas State. I just think this is a different level athlete. I know they played Mississippi State, but a different level dynamic offense that they have not seen this year at Kansas State. I just think that they don't have the personnel yet. I love everything about what they're doing there. I just think Oklahoma State kind of flexes its offensive muscles.
Well, just keep this in mind. Kansas State has beaten Oklahoma State the last 2 years as an 8-point dog and a 19-point dog, and they're 7-1 ATS last 8 versus the Cowboys. Okay, by SMU, wow, huge win. We mentioned it early. Huge win for the program at SMU. I think this is the beginning of something. I think they have like 31 transfers at SMU. It's because they're at Dallas. So you're getting all of the Texas kids that go to other big-time programs. They're star high school players. They're sick of sitting. Things aren't working out there. What do? Now they can transfer. You know where I'm going? I'm going back home. And so why not? This is Dallas. So they've got 31 transfers. They got a handful of really good players that are transferred players that have helped them out, including, of course, Buechele, the quarterback. I think this is the start of something at SMU, and it was nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, totally. They've been down for a long time. Obviously, those of us that are older know their story well. Once a power, and happy for Buechele, a Texas kid who had his dream job, quarterback, got squeezed out there, and he's experienced some success. And they got some nice Arkansas, Texas, then obviously the big one against TCU.
Okay, and a big game also in the Big 12, Iowa State, Baylor. So this is huge. I mean, Matt Campbell, Matt Rule, these two coaches look like they're going to get the job done eventually. Purdy had a breakout game last week to kind of get the offense going. First road game for the Cyclones. This is a good one. It's a game that I would just not touch and just enjoy it.
Yeah, probably the most meaningful Iowa State-Baylor game ever. Neither team has really been relevant at the same time like they are now. So, yeah, I'm with you, too. I have no strong feel for the game, but it'll be a fun one to watch.
Pac-12, we talked about the UCLA game. USC over Utah last week. USC loses Slovis early. Doesn't matter. Fink comes in. Michael Pittman, the receiver, had a tremendous game. But as always with Utah, especially the last couple of years, I mean, Zach Moss goes down with an injury. So instead, they got to settle for field goals. They had the red zone fumble instead of going into the half with the lead. It's a killer turnover. Moss isn't going to play again this week when they take on Washington State, but a big win for USC. Now they got to go to Washington to take on the Huskies, who had no problem beating BYU.
Yeah, I like Washington. I think that at the end of the year, we're going to look back and kind of what happened to that weird Cal game with the weather and how did Washington lose that game. I think they're rolling. East over 10 yards per last 2 games. Their offense is coming around. I just think I like this team. I like kind of the role they're getting on.
Keep in mind, this is a funny trend. USC is 1-13 against the spread the last 14 games on the road as a dog. Do you know when they covered? When they beat Washington. The last time they played in Washington. That's crazy, huh?
Interesting.
Okay. Cal, by the way, big win over Ole Miss. We told you we talked about the Ole Miss side of things. Garbers had a good game. That's a big deal for Cal if they can get anything in the passing game.
Totally. It's their best offensive game of the year, and they continue to be one of the best defensive teams. 4-0. Did not see this one coming. Great start for Wilcox.
4.5-point spread. This is a late game on Friday night. What do you think about this one? Cal hasn't beaten Arizona State since 2011. Cal will be at Oregon next week.
Yeah, both offenses are kind of struggling. Cal's threw the ball well last week, but Arizona State has been struggling a little bit, let one get away again at home against Colorado. I would stay away from this game, but my pick is for Cal to win.
Arizona State safety Cam Phillips looks like he's not going to play. He's their number 2 tackler, so one of the top defensive backs on the team. So keep that in mind for the matchup tomorrow night. Colorado had a big upset, by the way, over Arizona State. So that was a big win for Colorado after the loss to Air Force the week before. And UCLA at Arizona, UCLA has got to continue this now. And when you look at their schedule, they have 5 winnable games coming up before the murderous stretch at the end of the season. So this is a huge opportunity to kind of get things going. The quarterback finally had a big game. That has to continue, and if it does, maybe UCLA will. This will be the game last week against Washington State to get the program going again.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. Was that a part, or does that signal a turnaround? Out of nowhere, offensive turnaround. That'll be the key there. And you're right. There's, especially with Utah losing the Pac-12 South, there's wins to be had there, and the teams. Obvious statement: the teams that play well are going to win, and there's nothing to say UCLA can't be one of those teams.
And what do you think about the Utah game? They were a 5.5-point favorite in that one against Washington State.
Oh, Washington State. I can't decide. The injuries are, with Huntley being probable and Moss being questionable. I guess I'd pick Utah at home, but this one, nothing would surprise me in this one.
All right, Virginia, Notre Dame. So this is actually going to be a tough spot for Notre Dame after going to Georgia. They got to be mentally and physically beat up. A loss is going to hurt. Maybe the doubts of whether or not their season is over for a championship. And here's Virginia on the big stage, biggest game in the program for a long time.
Yeah, 4-0, did not play well last week, down 17-0 to Old Dominion, but that was kind of a sandwich game in between, the Florida State home game, which is always a big game, even though Florida State's not very good. Yeah, I like Notre Dame. Notre Dame has given up some yards to quarterbacks this year, running Jawan Pass. And then the New Mexico quarterback ran the ball well. Obviously, Fromm's not much of a runner. So my concern for Notre Dame would be, Virginia, one of the better dual threat quarterbacks in the country there. But I think I like Notre Dame at home.
It's a big spread, though. It's like 12, and both defenses are good. I mean, I would take Virginia in the points.
Virginia,
yeah.
I think, but they're kind of built so Notre Dame's a little bit better.
Still not a bad double-digit play to go with Virginia as a double-digit outright winner. By the way, BYU at Toledo, Tyson Williams tore his ACL, the leading rusher for BYU, late in the first half against Washington, and he's out for the season. So that's a tough break for BYU. And the New Mexico Liberty game is interesting because both head coaches are dealing with medical issues this year. And Bob Davie makes his return to the sidelines for New Mexico.
That's the only thing that makes it interesting.
That's it. AAC, we told you about Central Florida, SMU, Tulane. Temple was upset by Buffalo. But the big one, maybe, tonight, your double-digit upset pick of the week. This is going to definitely be one of mine as well. Navy against Memphis. I'm surprised that this is a 10.5-point spread. Navy's at plus 340 on the money line. Navy's covered 6 of 8 as a road dog. And we both talked about Navy as a dangerous team this year because Perry at quarterback, and Perry in the last game was fantastic a couple of weeks ago. With Taylor out for Memphis, to me, this is a flip of the coin game. I think the spread is way too big.
Yeah, we don't quite know. It's too early to label Navy, but they were one of the most consistent programs in the country for about 10 years. And they kind of fell off a cliff last year. I think they can get back. I see no reason why they can't. I think this is a really good spot tonight.
All right, and Houston or North Texas, by the way, that line obviously shot up to 7 because of the quarterback situation. So, I mean, what do you think? Do you think Houston is going to be like a hangover week?
I don't know if they're good enough, especially, you take away their best player. I might go North Texas in this.
By the way, North Texas star wide receivers out for the year now.
Okay.
So that's a break for Houston maybe. And Jeff Collins returns to Temple. Georgia Tech at Temple. I gotta take Temple in that game. I mean, I can't imagine how Georgia Tech's going to move the football in that game.
They can't score.
No.
They can't score.
In the Mountain West, we talked about San Jose State, Boise State, Utah State held on late. You must have been sweating. You had Utah State as one of your top picks. They had a huge lead, and San Diego State somehow had the ball with a chance to win the game late. But Utah
I wasn't
State,
sweating because I was sleeping.
You weren't watching the game, I know. I'm just
Confidence
saying.
in my Aggies. Yeah.
Tough break for Colorado State. They lose the Hill at quarterback. Then Patrick O'Brien, the backup, starts last week. Throws for over 400 yards in the loss to Toledo. Now they lose Marvin Kinsey, the running back who had over 200 yards last week. He's out for a while. And then it looks like their top wide receiver, that kid Jackson's going to be out. I mean, it's one of those years for Colorado State. And, with everybody healthy, this could have been a good team this year.
Yeah, and it's getting mounting pressure on Mike Bobo, who has not gotten it done there.
All right, and then in the Conference USA, the crazy, by the way, the ending, I'm not sure if you caught that one, the Louisiana Tech FIU ending, where Louisiana Tech covered the point spread on an onside kick return touchdown. I
saw the highlights. I did not realize that was
imagine that one.
Covering, yeah.
Yeah, if you got a lot of money in that one. UAB at Western Kentucky, I want to mention that one because quarterback Stephen Duncan's out for the season for Western Kentucky. So Arkansas transfer Ty Story is expected to start.
Yeah, he started some last year for Arkansas.
Are you surprised that line is only 2.5 considering?
Yeah, I am. In fact, UAB I consider as one of my picks of the week, but they've been a little inconsistent as well.
Yeah, they're a good pick team though. And Cincinnati at Marshall is a pretty good game. That's a good matchup.
Yeah, just a good football game. I mean, two teams. And
Cincinnati takes on Central Florida next week, I believe. That's a huge game, obviously, in the AAC.
It's the East, yeah.
And finally, in the Sun Belt, here's a couple of key games. One of your top picks is Troy. One of your picks is Troy against Arkansas State. Arkansas State's banged up right now. The quarterback's out for the season. They got the two running backs are banged up. A couple of defenders. I mean, they're just a walking wounded team. So Troy's a 7-point favorite.
Yeah, I made this pick early in the week, and when I saw Bonner, I didn't know he was out for the year, but I knew he was out this week, and Troy's been pretty good offensively under Chip Lindsey. So to me, it was a easy. I mean, obviously, I don't know what's going to come to fruition, but it's an easy pick with Arkansas State's injuries.
Well, we'll see how the kid from Arkansas State plays because they got this Alabama young transfer quarterback who's like Mr. Arkansas. So, hey, you know what? Young kids, you never know how they're going to perform.
Yep.
And finally, Coastal Carolina, Appalachian State. I just want to bring that game up because I like the way Carolina's been playing. And I think this is going to be a good football game. It's a 15.5-point spread. I just have the feeling that, especially coming off the North Carolina win, that Appalachian State better watch out.
Yeah, what you said is more thought than I put into that game right there. But yeah. So it's I like Coastal Carolina's coach. I like the program. When it came, they just killed UMass on the road, which is obviously beating UMass is not that difficult.
All right, so what's going on? I've got the Athlon College Basketball Magazine. Thank you very much. So
no problem. That's on stands right now, or you can buy it on our website at athlonsports.com/store.
Okay, and what's up next then? What are you doing?
We have our racing annual and our Major League Baseball annual. So it's kind of a slow time from a magazine standpoint here at Athlon, but got other things going on the website and some other projects we're working on to keep me busy.
All right, Mitch, I appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week.